Leon Hesser, the man who fed the world, Nobel Peace Prize laureate Norman Borlaug and his battle to end world hunger. Dive into the inspiring story of Norman Borlaug, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate who has devoted his life to the battle against world hunger. The man who fed the world takes readers on a journey of Borlaug's humble beginnings in rural Iowa to his worldwide crusade to increase food production through innovative agricultural techniques known as the Green Revolution. The summary will discuss the key highlights of Borlaug's work in Mexico, India, and Pakistan, as well as his passion for advocacy, collaboration, and education to make a lasting impact on agriculture across the globe.
Norman Borlaug, fighting world hunger. Norman Borlaug, born in 1914 on the Iowa Prairie, became the most influential figure of the 20th century by championing the fight against world hunger. He profoundly changed the way we think about agriculture. Borlaug's strong belief in human potential and optimism fueled his lifelong mission. The Nobel Prize Committee awarded him the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970, praising his passion and devotion to his work. Borlaug's childhood on the farm taught him valuable lessons in hard work and determination, which he applied to his quest to end world hunger. In the 1960s, when others saw a near-apocalyptic situation, Borlaug found a way out. His story reminds us that with hard work, optimism, and faith in human potential, we can achieve anything. Borlaug, a pioneer in fighting world hunger. Borlaug's determination to tackle world hunger led him to prioritize finding fast solutions, despite the risks involved. He focused on making plants more productive, producing high-yielding wheat crops that became the foundation of the Green Revolution. His strong work ethic and collaboration skills convinced small-scale farmers and companies to work together, leading to the successful adoption of his methods and saving countless lives. For Borlaug, making an immediate difference and putting his ideas to the test were more important than striving for perfection. His commitment to his goal inspired those around him to work just as hard, making him a pioneer in the fight against world hunger. Borlaug's Green Revolution. Changing agricultural practices, government bureaucracy, and the power of directness in combating world hunger. Agricultural practices have shaped society for centuries, making significant change a difficult challenge. To accomplish big-scale change requires grassroots efforts and government cooperation. Inefficient government bureaucracies also pose a threat to progress. Nobel Prize winner Dr. Norman Borlaug saw these threats as hindrances in the fight against increasing famine. He advocated for necessary policy changes and was unafraid to voice his opinions publicly and directly, generating support and publicity. Borlaug's directness was instrumental in convincing governments to produce more crop fertilizers and allow farmers to sell their grain at higher prices. He saw the potential for biotechnology to stop world hunger, but criticized governments for their obstructive regulations. In Pakistan, he predicted that lowering the set price at which farmers could sell wheat would be disastrous, and he was proved right as farmers began hoarding grain to sell at higher prices on the world market, but government regulations prevented this. Dr. Norman Borlaug's Green Revolution proved that change is possible with determination, directness, and government cooperation. As society continues to grapple with issues surrounding hunger and food scarcity, his legacy serves as a beacon of hope for future generations. How Borlaug turned a wheat revolution in Mexico into the global Green Revolution. In the 1940s, Norman Borlaug worked on high-yielding wheat varieties in Mexico, funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. This work is what led to the Mexican Wheat Revolution. Borlaug trained local scientists and used international research centers to spread knowledge and best practices globally. His belief was that national programs were essential in fighting hunger, but that they could benefit significantly from international research centers. The result of Borlaug's efforts was the Green Revolution, which proved that with international funding and connections, it is possible to fight world hunger. The life and legacy of Norman Borlaug. Norman Borlaug was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to end hunger and famine, which contributed to world peace. He warned in his acceptance speech that overpopulation would be the next challenge facing the world's food supply and that population control proponents and those battling hunger should combine their efforts. Borlaug's farming methods, which relied heavily on chemical fertilizers and high-yield wheat seeds, were criticized by many. He believed these critics were pseudoscientists who had not fully considered the implications of their criticisms. Despite his detractors, the poor and hungry praised him for his work. Today, his Green Revolution is credited with saving 1 billion lives. Borlaug's Practicality. Borlaug believed that scientists must be practical and work with farmers to understand agriculture. He was concerned about diseases, and it was his duty to develop alternative crop varieties. Borlaug believed that respect from farmers was crucial, and working on a farm was necessary to understand agriculture fully. Norman Borlaug, a Nobel Prize recipient, was an experienced scientist and a practical man. He despised complacency, and his practical nature manifested in his concern over new plagues and pests that could destroy entire crops. Therefore, he felt that it was the duty of the scientific community to develop alternative crop varieties as a contingency against such developments. Borlaug believed that scientists had to get their hands dirty by working on a farm to understand agriculture fully. This would help them gain the respect of farmers, which he believed was crucial to farmers accepting advice from outsiders. Moreover, it would allow them to communicate effectively with farmers, who may be illiterate or uneducated. Borlaug also showed a keen interest in disease-riddled plots, understanding the danger that diseases pose to crops. Thus, he believed that it was important to stay one step ahead of such developments. Borlaug's approach emphasized the value of working with farmers to gain knowledge deeper than that gleaned from governments. Borlaug's bottom-up approach. Norman Borlaug, an agricultural scientist, recognized the shortage of trained individuals in the field and saw himself primarily as a teacher. To address this issue, he chose a bottom-up approach, finding employment opportunities for young and inexperienced scientists and giving them responsibility to learn on the job. This approach proved successful as many of the young scientists went on to have successful international careers, with Ignacio Narvaez becoming the head of the Mexican Agricultural Research Program. Borlaug's approach focused on showing results through flourishing experimental fields rather than laying down a long list of modifications, which led to interest in his recommendations and pressured governments to implement changes more broadly. The success of his approach can be seen in the case of the Indian government, which was convinced to follow his advice after seeing the great success of his highly fertilized fields in Pakistan, leading to India becoming food independent. Borlaug's legacy. Norman Borlaug initiated the Green Revolution to avoid famine globally. However, agricultural research funds have declined since the 1980s, putting the world at risk of hunger and loss of crops, especially in sub-Saharan Africa that lacks essential infrastructure and experiences frequent droughts. Faced with this, Borlaug shifted his attention to Africa in his later years, where new diseases such as stem rust have emerged, threatening crops. Without continuous research and efforts, such diseases could spread across the continent. Before Borlaug's death, he realized the danger of decreasing agricultural research funding in Africa and considered it his lifelong worry. It is vital to increase financial investment in agricultural research to prevent hunger worldwide and to protect crops from deadly diseases. Borlaug's advocacy for biotechnology. Norman Borlaug strongly advocated for the use of biotechnology to feed the world by increasing crop yields and producing plants resistant to pests, diseases, and extreme weather. He saw biotechnology as a more advanced form of experimental genetics and plant breeding that could make larger changes in a shorter time than traditional methods. Borlaug believed that excessive governmental regulations on biotechnology were harmful to mankind when compared to the dangers of malnutrition and mass starvation. He also emphasized that nature has always evolved through crossing genetic barriers and creating transgenic plants, so there is nothing unnatural about biotechnology. Thanks to biotechnology, crops can now be produced on previously unused land, and it could produce plants resistant to plagues, pests, and extreme weather, increasing crop yields per acre drastically. Borlaug's strong advocacy played an essential role in increasing popular support for biotechnology.
As The Man Who Fed the World comes to a close, we've learned about Norman Borlaug's devotion to nurturing the Green Revolution in order to combat the dire global food crisis. As an agricultural scientist and visionary, Borlaug emphasized the importance of international cooperation and research in the face of dwindling support for such efforts. Despite criticism, Borlaug's pioneering work saved millions of lives and set a strong foundation for continued research. Brushing aside controversies, he advocated for the extensive use of biotechnology to enhance crop yields for an ever-growing world population. Though huge strides in the fight against world hunger have been made, Borlaug's legacy reminds us not to grow complacent and to continue seeking solutions to ensure a brighter future.